Hello everyone, and welcome to The Last of Us Lore Episode 5, where today we'll be discussing one of the many factions in the game, the Hunters. If you can stand, then you can fight. Anyone that refuses to fight with us will be banished. Anyone that supports the army will be made an example of. Tonight, we put an end to this tyranny and start a new life for ourselves. The Hunters are one of the main three factions in The Last of Us game, gaining their name from their tendency to brutally kill any survivors who wandered onto their territory. Hunters separate themselves from other hostile survivors as they are made up of previous quarantine zone inhabitants. These zones were taken over by the Hunters after the military abandoned them or were forced out. After taking over, supplies ran short, and most Hunters were forced to kill other survivors for supplies. During the game, Joel and Ellie come into contact with Hunters that used to be members of the Pittsburgh quarantine zone. After years of living under the military and Fedra, the citizens became unhappy with the constant food shortages. This led to them, with help from the Fireflies, rising up against their abusers, overthrowing Fedra and driving out the military. During the large-scale fighting, Hunters executed any soldiers they captured, lynching and even burning a few to death. In the end, the Hunters didn't want to be controlled by Fedra or take orders from the Fireflies, so they killed them too. Once the Hunters were left to their own devices, they had plans to set up their own form of government, but they never succeeded. In one instance, a group of teenagers killed a family of tourists that were passing through the city and were put on trial. But their leader ended up praising the teens for gathering food and supplies for everyone. Then he commanded everyone to take turns hunting other survivors in the city. Joel and Ellie first encountered the Hunters when they entered Pittsburgh and were ambushed. One of the Hunters pretended to be injured in the middle of the road, but when Joel drove right through him, they rammed their truck with a bus. In the city, the Hunters can be overheard discussing previous interactions with so-called tourists. In one case, they brutally murdered a group except for one woman, who they chased around the city for the rest of the day. They did end up killing her. Later on, one of the Hunters suggested that she was so tough that they should have let her join them. His argument was quickly shut down, though, as another said that she would have probably killed them all in their sleep. The Hunters made numerous attempts to expand their territory, making it into the suburbs and even as far as Lincoln before being turned back by infected. Their successes were often overshadowed by their failures, though, as in most of their attempts ended with multiple Hunters getting killed by infected or other survivors. The Hunters engaged Joel and Ellie again when the pair were trying to escape the city. This ended when Joel and Ellie jumped into the river. The Hunters would encounter the four escapees again in the suburbs, where Joel made his way to a sniper that overlooked the area. After he killed the sniper and took control of his weapon, more Hunters arrived with the Humvee. Joel killed all the Hunters and even destroyed the Humvee. As the gunner tried to throw a Molotov, Joel shot him, causing him to fall back in with the Molotov. The Humvee was then engulfed in flames and crashed. In terms of equipment, the Hunters certainly held their own compared to other groups in The Last of Us game. They of course had the modified military Humvee that had a very powerful 50 caliber machine gun on top. A note left by a soldier in the city also suggested that the Hunters had a stolen mortar launcher. Whether they had ammo for it is unclear though. In terms of weapons, they used shotguns, hunting rifles, handguns, and Molotovs. Some even used body armor, but just what could be scavenged off of dead soldiers. They also used nail bombs to kill wandering infected and survivors, and even had a military sniper, though this was lost when the infected retook the suburbs. One weapon that is never seen used by the Hunters are assault rifles. I would imagine that the military would have left many behind in their retreat, but they are never seen. This may be because they have long run out of ammo for them, but I believe something a little different. We never see the hunter's leader, but it is confirmed that they have one by many of the random hunters' comments. I believe that all the assault rifles, as well as the mortar, are being used to guard the leader in a secret location. In terms of their combat power, the hunters are on par with other factions in the Last of Us game. They closely resemble bandits in their appearance and actions, but lack the outside experience that the bandits have from living outside the quarantine zones. Most of their victories seem to be based off of numerical superiority, like over the military and the Fireflies, but a win is still a win. Now, let's end off the video with some interesting facts about the hunters. Like the Fireflies, there are no female hunters seen throughout the game, but they do exist as seen in the faction's multiplayer. This was because of memory issues, as female character models would need all new animations. Another is that the hunters don't seem to like each other and only stick together out of necessity, judging by banter that can be overheard. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay focused for more great Last of Us topics.